Let's see, YouTube, if I can get this to work today. I was having quite the glitch this morning. Was trying to record live through our Facebook and YouTube, and now I have Instagram on. Hi, Instagram. It's been like more than a few hot minutes. I am Kitryn Marie. I'm an artist, a writer, a speaker, a life and a business coach. I reside in St. Louis, Missouri. Pardon the hot messness, as I like to call it. Was working in my yard today on this Sunday, Father's Day. We are still in the midst of floods. We are still in the midst of rain. It seems like the rain is never going to end. They're calling for 8 more days of rain. The ground cannot saturate any more water. I'm still above ground, above water. Life is good. Life is really good. I did want to talk today just a little bit about Father's Day. Again, I apologize. I was working in the yard thinking of my dad on this Father's Day, because Dad always said it does not matter what you have in this life as long as you take care of what you have. My dad was a character. My dad was funny. My dad had this sense of humor that only on occasion could you see it. My dad was relentless about saving money, and we all have this mindset of money. My dad worked really, really hard all of his life. My dad had a lot of demons, and it took a lot for him to overcome the demons that he had. I look at the life that my dad lived, and being a business and a life coach, he would be prouder than punch at how far and how successful my life is and all the things that I have put together, because although my dad and I butted head a lot of different times on my dreams and what I wanted to do for my life, I was a daddy's girl. I was a daddy's girl, and no matter what I did or how I did it, in the long roundabout way, he was very prideful when it came to his 2 daughters. I'm going to show you just a few pictures here. Anybody that comes on, you can say hi. I will try to answer if I can. If not, I will respond after the video is all over. But, you know, who are you more like? Are you like your mom? Are you like your dad? Are you like your grandpa? Who do you look like? Your mannerism, the way that you go about things, the way that you speak, the way that you have passion about certain things. My mom died when I was 6 years old. She was a victim of domestic abuse. And although she was the victim of domestic abuse, that really is not what took her life. She went into anaphylactic shock, and in 1968, the medical procedures that they had back then is not what they would have today. She was bleeding internally, and they went to give her a blood transfusion, and sadly, it did not agree with her. It did not take. She had a reverse effect with the blood that she had received, and she was very allergic, went into anaphylactic shock, and she died. My mom and dad had this very tumultuous relationship. It was a passionate, pardon the expression, but it was kind of a fight and fuck kind of relationship. And any of us who have been in any kind of toxic, chaotic relationship, you know that term. You fight and fight and fight till you make up, and it is this great make-up sex, and it is an obsessive, toxic relationship. And although my dad loved my mom loved my dad, it was probably one of those relationships that should have ended long before her life ended. So I have been told that my mannerism, the way that I act, the way that I speak, that I am my mother's child. In one of my writings in an article that I wrote, I Am Carmen's Daughter, I look like my mom, but I think my daughter looks more like my mom. I've been told that I act like my dad, which probably is very, very true in a lot of sense of the word. So I'm going to show you some pictures. I apologize for this mess. Like I said, I've been working in the yard, but it is what it is for today. So any circles or any whatever. Okay, so here's my mom. This is Carmen. This is who my granddaughter is named after. Okay, and then this is my dad. So you can look at me and you can see, do I look like my dad or do I look like my mom? My hair, I like keeping it blonde with all the gray. I will be 58 in a couple weeks. We do what we have to do in order to look young, act young. My mom and dad. Dad died at the age of 59. My dad was an alcoholic most of his life. Very hard-working, functioning alcoholic. A man who was angry. A man that carried a lot of his childhood with him to his adult life. And by the time he had come to terms with his life and how he grew up and the things that he had to offer to anybody, it was too late. When I moved in with my dad, like I said, Mom died in 1968. My grandma and grandpa took care of me and my sister. I moved in with my dad in 1979 when I graduated from high school, and that is when my dad stopped drinking. My dad said he never wanted me to see the ugly parts of who he was or what his life was about. And my dad was a very handsome man. He looked like a cross between Dick Van Dyke and Johnny Carson. So if you put the two together, that was my dad. He carried himself extremely well. The money that he made all through his life, I think somewhere along the line he thought he could take his money with him. Growing up very, very poor in Springfield, Illinois. Came from a product of the Depression, World War II, a product from a tumultuous mother and father, an alcoholic environment, a grandmother who I adored. I loved my grandma on my dad's side of the family. She was a farm woman, loved to can, loved to grow things, loved to have her hand in the dirt, just as my dad did, just as I do. It's the product of environment, the things that trickle down, that you start to recognize why you are who you are and the things that you do. By the time he met my mom in 1956, he had just gotten out of the service. In fact, this picture is from my dad, which would have been his senior picture, but he was drafted into the Korean War. It was right at the end of the Korean War. And he was stationed in Frankfurt, Germany. He met my mom in 1956. They married in 1958. My mother, a graduate from Notre Dame High School in 1956. My dad would have went to Soldan High School. And they got married, and I came along in 1961. Mom, Dad had me, my sister Beth. We're 3 years apart. And the things that influence our lives when we're young. And my sister and I often talk about who we are more of. Are we more of my mom's side of the family, or are we more of my dad's side of the family? And I bring these things up because as a business coach, as a life coach, you know, sometimes we question our motives. We question why we do the things that we do, and we don't know why we do the things that we do. You know, there are innate gifts that get passed down generation to generation. There are things within our DNA, as much as, you know, I think I look like my mom. I think I look a little bit more like my dad. I think I act a little bit more like my dad, although my mannerism is my mom. You know, my mom wanted to be in show business. My mom wanted to be a singer. She sang on stage, on TV. And my dad was very reluctant about that public life. I wonder oftentimes if my dad was still here now, as proud as he would be about the accomplishments that both me and my sister have fulfilled in this life. You know, he had issues with my mom being in front of a camera. He had issues with my mom getting us on a stage and having the spotlight. And in this day and age when we're trying to have a business, being able to be best foot forward, being able to speak our best talk, being able to showcase who we are, because as a business owner, as an entrepreneur, you know, we gather these followers. We gather the people who want to see what our lives are like. And I have said before, if you are spending time in my space, you need to understand this is a public platform, and what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to achieve, you know, it's the necessary means for having this life. I think my dad would have gotten a big kick out of social media. I think my dad would have been very happy to, when he would fish, how he would have probably, you know, put his pictures up. Teaching my dad about computers, I can only imagine how that would have worked. He was a crossword puzzle man. He would drink 2 pots of coffee in the morning before he would go to work. He was a truck driver for a lot of years. Would do the crossword puzzle, would challenge his mind, liked brain teasers. Not a joke teller, but like I said, he was funny in his own way. Loved to travel. I think all the years that he was in the service, he had the travel bug. And when he got out of the service, his brother had lived later on in California. And him and my mom would travel to California. My dad absolutely loved Las Vegas. Right after my mom had passed away, he packed up me and my sister, and we drove across the country from here, St. Louis, Missouri, to California. And later on in life, had found out that my dad pretty much had drank his way all the way across those states, and how anybody could have 2 small children and still be accountable and responsible and being intoxicated, and the things that we learned in our life and the things that were instilled in our life because of who we are and how we are and what he had to go through and the challenges that he had to overcome that imposed in our life. And this generation that we live in now, we are fortunate if we are able to understand the likes of why our folks have acted the way that they did. And if you are privileged enough to ask the questions, to know the whys, to why they have done the things that they did. You know, my dad, he had anger issues. He really did. He wasn't very proud of the life that he had lived, and by the time he had made amends with his demons, it was almost too late. A heavy drinker, a heavy smoker. He had given up, like I said, drinking, and when I graduated high school, and started to come to terms with the kind of life that he had lived and the kind of man that he was, and he wanted what was best for his daughters. You know, I talk about a lot in my coaching classes, women who hide behind their men, who are afraid to step out because it is not cohesive to the life that they want you to live. Nobody can take those dreams away. I've said that repeatedly. Nobody can make you do something that you don't want to do, but you can't tell a woman where to put her heart. You can't tell a man anymore to do than a woman puts her heart. He's going to do what he wants to do, and until he recognizes his behavior, it's when the actions all change. And, you know, in my coaching classes, as I'm telling women, you take your talents and you take your gifts and you go out on that limb and you strive for this life. You don't have to measure up to what your mom and dad did, because it's a completely different life. It's a completely different generation. And any of us who are raising young boys, we want to teach them the respect that they need to have for women, the respect that they need to have, that you do not raise your hand in anger. You do not raise your hand, in frustration. Domestic violence, I think statistics are a boy who grows up in a domestic violent household, 1 in 5 boys become batterers and become emotionally abusive to their partners in this life. We teach our boys, you love intimately with those hands. You don't go after somebody's neck. You don't go after somebody's head and punch them. You raise your hand and be inquisitive. What can I do to change me? What can I do to change our situation, to make our situation better for the both of us, because I love you? Teaching our boys it's okay to have these emotions and to be able to love completely with respect, without any regard of any type of embarrassment. We're not our parents. We are evolved. We are awakened. We have learned from their mistakes. Our children are learning from our mistakes. And it's this next generation and the following generation where they want to be able to break all those bad cycles and the bad things that have happened in life, where they can recognize why their parents have done what they've done. That was a lot of the reasons why I like coaching and mentoring, because these women, they think that that's the only thing that they know. They don't understand that they are allowed to become something different, to become something other than what they thought they were supposed to do from a family tradition or family generation, or things that have been passed down, that a cycle just needs to break. My dad's been gone an awful long time, and I miss my dad something terrible. Children who grow up in abusive, domestic violent households, they do not stop loving the parent. They stop loving themselves. Every partner that they pick, they compare to the mom and the dad that they had. And the standard that a woman has, it's because of the standard and the measures that her dad has put where she will compare men. I can say myself, I had gotten myself involved in a emotional, abusive, somewhat physical, narcissistic relationship for 8 years. I darn near almost ended up with somebody just like my dad. And, sadly, it was because it's the things that we become familiar with that we choose the same things. Our subconscious tells us it's okay, go to that. Those red flags that we ignore because our heart is just beating. So if there's anything that I can do for any of you, I would love for you to reach out to me. You can contact me at kitrynmarie@gmail.com. Right now I am offering a business coaching and a life mentoring session. You get to send me 2 questions via email at $15 for the 2 questions. Hang on. Come on in. You can send me 2 questions via email, and I will respond within 2 to 4 weeks. I have an online coaching session for $35, or if you're in the St. Louis area and you were looking for a personal mentoring or a business coaching, 2 hours for $65. We talk about all these things. We talk about the dynamics of how you grew up and the people that influenced your life, and the way that you think about money, and the way that you carry yourself, and the way that you talk about your family, and the way that you talk about your traditions, and the way that you want to do business, and going out on that limb, becoming better and more aware of why you were so afraid. A child that grows up in an alcoholic family or an abusive family develops some crazy, crazy coping skills. Oftentimes the kids in themselves become alcoholics. They become addicted, and the cycle has not yet been broken. And I try to teach women how to recognize these cycles, how they can take themselves out of that equation because they're no longer in that situation. The anxiety and the coping skills that we all develop because we're trying to just survive. We guess at what is normal. When you're growing up in that alcoholic family or in that domestic abusive family, you wonder, is this normal? Do you even question? It's just like this is just a part of the way life is. You don't know when that shoe is going to drop. You don't know what side of that fence you're going to be on. You know, an alcoholic person, there are highs and lows, and you have to kind of ease your way in just to see what the mood is like. And luckily, my dad recognized a lot of his demons, and he was able to come to term with a lot of the demons that he had. He was a wonderful man when he wanted to be a wonderful man, and I love my dad, and I miss him something terrible. You know, there would not be a day that I did not speak with him 3 times a day, and where our conversations did not end with "I love you, Dad." There's so many things that I would love to share, you know, with him. I look in my grandkids' eyes and I see the uncanniness of them, the way that the looks that they give, and how, you know, it's like looking at a younger version of my dad, because things do get passed down through heritage and through DNA. And you want to take all those wonderful, good qualities that we learn from our parents, whether it be your mother, whether it be your father. So hopefully today, wherever you are, that you are spending some wonderful quality time with your dad. Ask the right questions. You know, get to know your parents before it's too late and you can't ask those questions. I teach a photojournaling class where we chronologically put in order your family's life. Your life, your mom, your dad, how they met, the who, the why, the what, the when, the where. I would love to have you in one of my classes. You can do a group session. You can do a private class. You know, I ask that you gather all your photos, get a nice photo journal, get a good pen, because we do write a lot of things out. You know, we talk about those storylines, because it's those storylines that our kids and our great-grandkids are going to need to know once we are gone. And we want to make sure that we are leaving really good, positive impacts of the lives that our folks left, and how we're leaving and what we will leave behind. So for today and tomorrow, happy Father's Day here in St. Louis. The sun is shining. It has been a wonderful, wonderful day. Taking care of all the things that I've needed to take care of today, because Dad always said it doesn't matter what you have in this life, as long as you take care of all those things that you do have in your life. You become responsible and you become accountable, and you take care of the things that you were able to do the best you know how to do. So I am Kitryn Marie. I am an artist, a writer, a speaker, a life and a business coach. So for today, be happy, and I will see you all real soon. Take care.